Do not wreck Brexit for the British people. Jacob Rees Mogg's w.arning to House of Lords. The high-profile MP who has been tipped as a potential future Tory leader suggested peers would inflame demands for their chamber to be fundamentally reformed if they tried to frustrate the will of the people. He spoke ahead of further House of Commons debate on key Brexit legislation that MPs will today wed to complete before sending it to the Lords for scrutiny. In today's debate, leading pro-EU Tories urged peers to vote through major changes to the EU Withdrawal bill, and for MPs then to back those amendments when the government asks them to overturn them. The Conservatives do not have a majority in the Lords, where many peers are strongly anti-Brexit and several are openly seeking to overturn the 2016 referendum result. Mr. Rees Mogg noted in a new fortnightly Moggcast podcast on the Conservative home website that peers included retired bureaucrats desperately trying to ensure that their beloved project is maintained, who could create a peers versus the people situation. Peers versus the people is always won by the people, he went on. The Lords need to remember that, and they need to recognize that they do not have democratic legitimacy. They are there as a revising chamber, but our constitutional settlement accepts that the basis of power is in the House of Commons, on behalf of the people, and a referendum is even more powerful and authoritative than that. If the Lords in their wisdom, and a lot of them are very pro-European, decide to try and frustrate the democratic will of the people, both as expressed by the House of Commons and by the referendum, the Lords will, as an institution, get into difficulties. He particularly urged them not to back another referendum, saying, "A second referendum would be very dangerous territory for the Lords because it would be seen as the characteristic European hatred of democracy, so if you vote the wrong way you get made to vote again until you vote the right way. It would be seen as a blocking amendment. But I also think then Leave would win, at which point the Lords would look stunningly ridiculous and there would be very great pressure for fundamental reform." Later, MPs in the Commons debated and voted on various aspects of the EU Withdrawal bill, which will transfer EU law into UK domestic law on exit day next year, to ensure continuity for businesses and citizens. Leading Europhile Tory Ken Clarke said he hoped the Lords would make an enormous number of changes to the bill. It was an illusion, he told fellow MPs, to think a bill with so many Henry VIII powers, enabling future governments to make legal changes with little parliamentary scrutiny, would have an untroubled journey through the Lords. The House of Lords, I hope, will throw back some of the bizarre extensions of the Henry VIII principle in this bill, but also some of the European things, said the former Chancellor. I think some of the lawyers there will not put up with some of this nonsense. Observers were entertained when pro-Brexit Tory MP Sir Desmond Swayne, sitting behind Mr. Clarke, appeared to doze off as his colleague spoke, before jolting upright and checking his mobile phone. But Labour former Minister Ben Bradshaw suggested the Tory was just pretending to sleep. Sir Desmond often makes a show of looking bored or disapproving when Mr. Clarke speaks. Fellow pro-EU Tory rebel Anna Soubry said it would fall now to the Lords to correct faults in the bill. It's the way it is at the moment, where many MPs share our concern, but the nature of the political situation means they haven't gone that extra step, perhaps to defy a three-line whip or be seen as disloyal to their leader, said Ms. Soubry. But it's really important when the legislation comes back, from the Lords, that we have the courage of our convictions and put our country's interests absolutely at the front of all that we do, so we make sure we get the very best piece of legislation, because it is so important. She also believed that in coming months people would see that Theresa May was wrong to have ruled out staying in the EU single market and customs union. All options need to be placed back on the table, and I mean all options, and that includes the ability of the people to determine the future of Brexit. In a series of votes, the government defeated opposition demands to write continued protection of workers and animal rights more explicitly into the legislation. Solicitor General Robert Bauckland said the amendments would sow legal confusion and were unnecessary.